She carefully notates certain note values, articulation, accents, and verbal instructions for players, but welcomes individual interpretation. Indeterminate music, according to the Oxford Companion to Music, is music over which the composer has to some degree relinquished control, perhaps by leaving some aspects to chance or to the performer's decision. This type of music is often associated with the music from early 20th century America, most notably the composers Charles Ives, Henry Cowell, and John Cage. Indeterminate music, often interchangeably used with the term aleatoric music, can be generally separated into three different groups. Number 1, chance in the process of composition. Number 2, chance in unpredictable notation. Or number 3, chance in the decisions made by performers or conductors from given musical material. Let's briefly touch on the first type, chance in the process of composition. The piece associated most commonly with this type is Music of Changes by John Cage. Composed in 1951 for solo piano, Cage used an ancient Chinese divination text, the I Ching, to create a piece of music entirely based on chance. Cage would ask a question to the book and use the subsequent answer to compose the piece. The process Cage used to create and notate this composition was very complicated, involving charts for various parameters in the music, such as tempo and dynamics, and a proportional notation system. Cage has since remarked that David Tudor, the pianist and friend of Cage who first performed this piece, had to learn a form of mathematics which he didn't know before. Even after all of this, the performer is then asked to flip coins to determine the final form of the performance. This type of indeterminate music is very complex, and ultimately, all chance lies in the hands of the composer, creating a mostly predetermined outcome once it gets in front of the performer. In contrast to this, Type 2 heavily relies on the interests, abilities, and imagination of the performer. Compositions utilizing chance in unpredictable musical notation refers to pieces communicated with text and/or graphic notation, which we have already studied in class. Looking at Wanderlust by Cat Hope, we can see that the use of graphic symbols instead of conventional notation leaves the outcome of the performance reliant on the individual interpretations of the score. A large proportion of the symbols could be interpreted in many different ways, including the level of interaction between the two instruments. There isn't even set instruments for the composition, leaving the timbral outcome up to the performers as well. Even more far out there, in 1968, Karl-Heinz Stockhausen abandoned conventional notation altogether by composing a set of 15 text scores named From the 7 Days, in which he uses words to explain how the music should be performed. Lastly, we have Type 3, chances in the decisions made by performers or conductors from given musical material. This is the type we see in Movement 3 of Two Minds, One Music and Movement 2 of Terra Obscura. Both composers have asked performers to repeat and determine their own rhythms from a set of pre-selected pitches according to their own personal tastes, and, in the case of Bailey's work, shaped structurally according to the conductor's instructions. Bailey gives verbal instructions for performers to play the pitch selection as written, using own phrasing, followed by the freedom to choose any or all of the pitches with regard to sequence, register, articulation, dynamics, and rhythm. She has even used a kind of Type 2 style of indeterminate music with the use of text, asking rhythm section players to ad-lib, brief sporadic comments, gradually building to sustained driving rhythmic propulsion, and ultimately explosion, I suppose. This type of indeterminate music allows the composer to, according to the Oxford Companion of Music, create a texture which is fixed in broad terms but variable in detail. Think of it as a healthy balance between type 1 and type 2. Ultimately, when composing indeterminate music, there are no hard and fast rules. This style has evolved and persevered for nearly 100 years, ever since the earliest compositions of Charles Ives. While giving freedom to the performers in these compositions, the process itself is freedom embodied. Thanks for watching my video on indeterminate music. If you want to check out any more of my video resources on assisting composition, check out my channel.